Hi guys, this is the Casual Fan. Now, the 2022 Formula 1 season has not been kind to Lewis Hamilton in any which way. Recovering from the heartbreak of the 2021 season, where he lost the title on the last lap of the season under dubious circumstances, the driver was looking forward to the 2022 season as an opportunity to redeem himself. However, as it turned out, the Mercedes has been unable to produce a car good enough to fight for race wins in the first half of the season, because of which Hamilton has been somewhat reduced to fight in the midfield, something he hasn't done for almost a decade now. While if that wasn't enough, the introduction of a new teammate in George Russell has been, well, an inconvenience to say the least. The young British driver in his debut season has been outperforming Lewis Hamilton consistently this season. If we look at the point standings at the moment, after the Monaco Grand Prix, Russell has 84 points on the board compared to just 50 points for Lewis Hamilton. Want to know how this is more impressive? Russell has only once lost out to Lewis Hamilton in the entire season, and that happened in the very first race. Ever since, Russell has not lost to Hamilton. Now, looking at Hamilton's losing streak against Russell, it made me wonder what other points of time in Hamilton's career has he gone on a losing streak against his teammates, and where does Russell fit into some of the worst losing streaks Hamilton has had against his teammates. Bear in mind, Hamilton has been teammates with Fernando Alonso, Jenson Button and Nico Rosberg, three former champions of the sport. So I thought it will be interesting to see where Russell finds himself in this list. Now, with that in mind, in this video, what we are going to do is we will take a look at some of Lewis Hamilton's worst losing streaks against his teammates. And we'll see where George Russell and his winning streak sorts itself out. So without further ado, let's jump straight to it. At number 5, we have a 3-race losing streak against Fernando Alonso in 2007. Now, Lewis Hamilton started his career with Fernando Alonso as his teammate. Alonso was the reigning 2-time world champion but was somewhat rattled by his teammate's speed. As a result, it was almost neck and neck between the two drivers throughout the season. The hotly contested tussle saw the initiative swing back and forth on both sides. Alonso, however, was able to string together a winning streak at one point this season. And that streak included beating Hamilton in a head-to-head battle in Turkey, Italy and Belgium. Now, in Turkey, Hamilton was ahead of Alonso, but because of a tire puncture, he ended up falling behind him in the standings. At the Italian Grand Prix, Alonso was in a league of his own as he dominated that weekend. And even at Belgian Grand Prix, it was quite obvious that Alonso held the edge over Hamilton as he finished third in the race ahead of Hamilton, who finished fourth. Now, in the aftermath, Hamilton bounced back in the fourth race in Japan to win the race in treacherous conditions, while Alonso crashed out of the race. Both drivers ended the season level on points in the championship, while Hamilton finished as the runner-up because he had more wins to his name. I think it's fair to say that having just a 3-race losing streak against Fernando Alonso, a reigning 2-time world champion, in your rookie season is very impressive, to say the least. That was one legendary debut season by Hamilton if you look back at it right now. Now, in number 4, we have a losing streak of 3 races against Jenson Button in 2010. Now, I think almost everyone remembers that many people thought that it was a career suicide for Jenson Button when he opted to sign for McLaren at the end of the 2009 season. Button was the world champion in 2009, but a lot of it was attributed to the Brawn GP that he had. Hamilton was the 2008 world champion, and many considered him to be the best driver on the grid. Despite that, Button was able to accrue a 3-race win streak over Lewis Hamilton. The win streak started at Italy, a race where Lewis Hamilton collided with Felipe Massa at the start of the race and ended up retiring. Button ended up finishing second in that particular race and was in a race-long battle with Fernando Alonso. At Singapore, once again, Hamilton collided with Mark Webber, providing Button another win. And then, at the very next race in Japan, Button beat Lewis Hamilton fair and square as he finished 4th as compared to Lewis finishing 5th. Now I guess we all have to remember that Button was, well, he was somewhat of a Suzuka specialist. He would always do well at the track against pretty much any other teammate that he had against him. So yeah, in the very first season, in his partnership with Lewis Hamilton, Jenson Button was able to accrue a 3-race win streak over the 2008 world champion and in a way redeemed his decision. Now in the aftermath, the season was still more or less the one where Hamilton held a clear edge over Button, as was reflected in the final standings as well. Hamilton finished with 240 points in the season, while Button was 26 points behind with 214 points to his name. Now in number 3, we have a losing streak of 5 consecutive races against Jenson Button in 2011. Now in Lewis Hamilton's career, the 2011 season has to be considered the worst of the lot. He was nowhere, he was crashing every time, he was unable to concentrate, and he was just driving erratically. However, at the same time, you have to give credit to Jenson Button as he drove probably the best he'd done throughout his career. In this 5-race win streak that started in Hungary and ended in Japan, Button not only benefited from Lewis Hamilton crashing out, there were races where he legitimately beat Lewis pretty much in a head-to-head situation. The win streak started at Hungary, where Button beat Lewis Hamilton in a head-to-head battle in mixed conditions. Button won the race while Lewis Hamilton finished 4th. The Belgian Grand Prix saw Lewis Hamilton crash out of the race after a collision with Kobayashi, while Button finished on the podium. In the Italian Grand Prix, Jenson Button overtook Lewis Hamilton on the track to finish 2nd in the race, while Hamilton finished 4th. After the Italian Grand Prix, the circus moved to the Singapore Grand Prix, and once again Button finished 2nd in the race while Hamilton was 5th. And after Singapore, we came to Japan, where Button dominated the race and won, while Lewis Hamilton finished 5th. Now looking back at this losing streak, what you can see is that there was only one race in Belgium where Lewis Hamilton crashed out. At every other race, Button was able to outperform his teammate. And probably in terms of luck or misfortune, there's not much here, and it was entirely down to the performance put together by Button, as he got the upper hand over Lewis in probably the first time in Hamilton's career when someone had been able to go on such a long stretch performing better than him. In the aftermath, Button, well, it was obvious by this point that he was driving at a very high level, and he finished the season as the runner-up in 2nd position with 270 points. Lewis, on the other hand, well, he had a horrible season, and he would finish 5th in the championship with just 227 points to his name. Now at number 2, with a losing streak of 6 races, we have George Russell in the 2022 F1 season. Now bear in mind, this streak is still continuing, and it might even increase in the coming races. Now the streak started at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, where Lewis made an error with the setup and was eliminated in Q1. In the end, Russell would finish the race in 5th, while Hamilton finished in 10th. At the Australian Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton held the edge over Russell as he was ahead in terms of track position. But the ill-timed safety car turned things on its head as Russell, who had opted to stay out and not pit for a change of tires, was able to benefit and ultimately ended up jumping Lewis in the standings and even finishing on the podium while fending off his teammate. At the Imola Grand Prix, I think much has been said about that race anyways. Russell put on a clinic as he finished 4th in the Mercedes, while Lewis Hamilton struggled all weekend and would finish only 13th. At the Miami Grand Prix, once again it was Lewis Hamilton holding the edge over Russell, but once again it was the timing of the safety car that gave Russell a free pit stop and gave him the opportunity to attack Lewis on the fresher tires and ultimately jump him on the track. Russell would finish in 5th while Lewis finished in 6th in that particular race. After Miami, we had Barcelona. Now in Barcelona, Russell out-qualified Lewis and was able to hold that position at the start, while Lewis ultimately ended up tangling with Kevin Magnussen and falling down the grid. In the end, Lewis recovered and would finish 5th in the race, but Russell would finish on the podium in 3rd. After Barcelona, we reached the Monaco Grand Prix. And even at the Monaco Grand Prix, Russell was able to outqualify Lewis and finish in 5th, while Lewis was able to only score 8th in the race. Ultimately, it leads us to a 6-race losing streak for Lewis against his young teammate. And even in the standings, we have Russell holding a 34-point advantage over Lewis. How it pans out in the future is something we'll have to see, but it's hard not to admit that this has been very impressive from George Russell. And now, at number 1, with a losing streak of 7 consecutive races, we have Nico Rosberg at the top. In a streak that was divided into 2 parts, 3 races in the 2015 season and 4 in the 2016 season. In the 2015 season, he won the last 3 races in Mexico, Brazil, and Abu Dhabi, without much of a challenge against Lewis. In the 2016 season, he won the Australian Grand Prix after a slight battle with Sebastian Vettel. In the Bahrain Grand Prix, he won again, but this time Lewis was hampered by a clash with Valtteri Bottas at the start of the race. At China, Lewis had reliability issues, because of which ultimately he could only finish 7th while Rosberg won the race. And then in the Russian Grand Prix, it was once again Hamilton starting down the order because of reliability issues that Rosberg was once again able to benefit and pick up a 7th win on the trot. Now, while Rosberg did ultimately hold the edge in the first 4 races to win comfortably, the last 3 races saw reliability, luck, fortune, all of them play a part in Rosberg winning and Lewis faltering. In the aftermath, while Hamilton was able to mount a comeback in 2016, Rosberg was just able to hang in there until the last race of the season and ultimately beat Hamilton for the title in the 2016 season. Until date, this 7-race losing streak is the biggest and the worst losing streak that Hamilton has been on against his teammate in his Formula 1 career. Now, the aim of this video is not really to take a shot against Lewis Hamilton. I mean, let's be honest, Lewis Hamilton will forever be remembered as the most successful driver to ever sit in a Formula 1 car. No one can take that away from him. The aim of this video is to highlight what George Russell has been able to achieve in his very first season with Mercedes. Has he had luck on his side? Sure, definitely. He has been lucky. But in Lewis Hamilton's 15-year-long career, has no other driver had luck on his side? Sure, they have been lucky. That's why this 6-race winning streak over Lewis Hamilton is a sign of how impressive a talent George Russell is. And surely Mercedes' future seems safe with him as the successor of Hamilton. So these were some of the worst losing streaks of Lewis Hamilton's career. I hope you guys liked the video. Please drop your views in the comment section. Thanks for watching and see you next time.